162 AD, 4056 AM. Out of the Far East in China, a plague spreads into the Middle East and quickly into the provinces of Rome. The epidemic will cripple China for 11 years and will afflict the Roman world for 16 years. A dark age begins in China that will last 46 years until 208 AD. Entire provinces of the Roman Empire are depopulated by the plague, and the Goths begin encroaching upon the fringes of the empire, none in the lands to oppose them. On the other side of the world, in the land of Ophir, called Peru today, where there is gold according to the scriptures, the Andean Empire at Cuzco is devastated by earthquakes and the appearance of comets, strange portents and warfare. This occurred in the reign of the 62nd king of Cuzco. The megalithic city is abandoned, and the people go and dwell in the mountain city of Tamputoco, believed by Zechariah Sitchin to be the city of Machu Picchu, where 28 kings would rule until the people returned to Cuzco in 1012 AD. The calendrics for this year are very prominent, linked to the anciently highly regarded Great Year of 600-year epochs that the very earliest chronographers claimed the history of the world was divided by. This was 600 times 9 years of the Anunnaki chronology, 600 times 7 years of the orbital chronology, when Earth assumed its present orbit around the Sun in 4039 BC, and 600 times 6 years after the descent of the Watchers, Anunnaki, in 3439 BC. This was also 600 times 5 years after the founding of the Anunnaki dynasty, the year of Noah's birth in 2839 BC, as well as 600 times 4 years after the Great Flood in 2239 BC. Further, this was 600 times 3 years after Manasseh and Ephraim in Egypt were adopted into the family of Israel in 1639 BC, and 1200 years, 600 plus 600, after David was born in 1039 BC. This was also the year 2976 Anno Pyramid, and 408 years after the founding of the Parthian dynasty over Mesopotamia in 247 BC, 408 years being 4896 months. This was the year 670 since the founding of the Republic of Rome in 509 BC. 170 AD, 4064 AM. Athenagoras wrote the Book of Angels and Giants. It was accepted history of this time that wicked angels, Anunnaki, long ago before the deluge, copulated with human females, who then gave birth to monstrous giants. Only later was there an official church movement to suppress this history. Also in this year, Roman Emperor Marcus Antonius received a letter from the Bishop of Sardis in Asia Minor, named Melito, requesting the emperor's attention concerning Christians being vexed, informing the emperor that he was a descendant of emperors who had overturned the policies of Nero concerning Christians. Melito also informed him that what was known as Christianity then was actually of very high antiquity and was imported into the Roman Empire in the reign of his ancestor Augustus Caesar. 1. Aryan Sun Myths, citing Diogenes. 177 AD, 4071 AM. The New Testament Book of Acts first enters the historical record in 177 AD. In the western frontier of the Roman Empire at Gaul, France, in the area of Lyon, a terrible persecution of Christians emerged, the worst wave of tragedy to occur since Nero's tribulation in Rome over a century before. Mobs had assembled all the believers and spent many days torturing men, women, and even children, while their leader Irenaeus, the bishop, was away travelling. These were the first Gallic martyrs in Christendom. This occurred exactly 144 years after the crucifixion event in 33 AD. That the Gauls were of ancient Israelite stock has been sufficiently demonstrated herein, but the true extent of the Gallic world at this time in history is best found in the words of Rev. H. J. Warner from 1922 AD when he wrote, quote, "In order to understand the situation, political and ecclesiastical, in southern France, We must bear in mind that the Gauls of the west and the Galatais of the east were of the same stock, and that each branch, though several nations intervened, retained unimpaired its racial characteristics. Galli, Galatais, Celtae are all but different forms of the same word. Livy would speak of the Gauls of the east, Polybius of Galatians in the west. The Gauls were a warm-hearted people, but unstable in their friendships, impetuous and courageous in war. To these traits may be added vivid imagination, a fondness for song and poetry. Gaul had become one of the perpetual conquests of Rome, and had submitted to its governmental system, but nothing could eradicate its racial peculiarities. The Gaul was an individualist, the Roman an imperialist, and hence the Gaul might be conquered but never destroyed. The Western Gaul had never lost touch with its eastern kin. Its Christianity from the earliest times was on eastern rather than western lines. The letter which the Christians in Gaul in AD 177, describing the sufferings and deaths of the martyrs in the persecution, sent to the brethren in Asia and Phrygia, can only be explained on the assumption that they were the same kith and kin. In fact, one of the martyrs, Alexander, was a Phrygian. Unquote. 1. Simon Magus. 2. 4 witnesses. 3. The Albigensian heresy.